The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Leave It To Beaver. Starring Barbara Billingsley, Hugh Beaumont, Tony Dow, and Jerry Mathers as the Beaver.
Hello, this is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Welcome to my show. Today I have a special phone-in guest, and his name is Jerry Mathers. And he's going to be on my show for about at least a half an hour. So we shall await his phone call, and we'll be with you in a moment. Well, Jerry Mathers is my guest here on Patty's Page. And I have my co-host here, John Dickmeyer. Say hello.
Hello, Jerry.
Hey, John. How are you and Patty doing?
We're doing marvelously.
My husband,
That's good to hear.
my husband Bob is the cameraman.
Hi, Jerry.
Hello.
So we've got some questions for you. Hope you don't mind.
Well, depends what they are.
They're good ones, good ones. I checked them
Well, I
over.
won't mind.
They are. Oh, that's great. So Jerry, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Sioux City, Iowa, but I only lived there for about maybe 8 or 9 months of my life. And then my parents, under the GI Bill, my dad went to USC because he was a veteran of World War II.
Oh,
And so I grew up in Los Angeles.
wow. That's a long ways from Iowa, eh?
A bit of a hike.
See, my dad was in the Royal Canadian Air Force in the Second World War.
Okay. My dad was a B-25 pilot. He flew 25 missions over Germany and was shot down twice.
Oh my goodness. And he managed to get out alive. That's good. That's
Not only
good.
that, but he took his whole crew with him, so they all got back.
Oh my goodness. Brave soul. My dad was a navigator, you know, for the looking for U-boats.
Oh, we're out over the ocean.
Oh yeah, English Channel.
Yep.
So John,
So, how did you get involved with the television series?
Well, I've been an actor since I was 2 years old. It
wow.
actually started when I was 2 years old. My mom was walking through a department store, and she was from Minnesota, and my dad was from Iowa. But my dad went out to, after the war, under the GI Bill, went out and went to school at USC, and my mom had grown up in the Los Angeles area. So after they met, my dad went back to Iowa. I was born in Iowa. Then he wanted to come back out here. He went into the school system, and he retired as the superintendent of LA City Schools. But when I was about 2 years old and living out here, my dad was still a coach for a parochial high school, so they didn't have a lot of money, and my mom was kind of looking for bargains in a department store.
Oh yeah.
The lady walked up to her and said, "Is this your little boy?" Because she was walking around looking for clothing for me. And the lady said yes. And my mom said, "Well, if you touched something or broke something, you know, we'll pay for it. It'll be all right." And the lady said, "No, I just noticed that he fits our clothes very well, and I was wondering if he could be a model for us."
Huh?
And my mom knew that this was the big city, and she was kind of, you know, a little gun shy. She said, "Well, I don't know, what would he have to do?" And the lady said, "Well, all he'd have to do, we have fashion shows, and in big department stores, they used to have those. We have fashion shows 3 or 4 times a month, and all he'd have to do would be hold a model's hand and walk out onto the stage wearing our clothing, and we would pay him, and he could keep the clothing." And my mom said he could do that. So that's how I started, and at that time, live TV was just starting, and in New York for live TV, which is where TV really started, Broadway stage, and there were a lot of children that worked on the stage in Broadway. Out here in Los Angeles for live TV, all the kids that were out here worked in movies, and so they went, wait a minute, there is no theater community here, but the models used to go out, and after we were modeling for the catalogs, we'd also do runway work, because we used to have fashion shows.
Oh my.
They said, well, they're used to working in front of an audience, maybe they could be the actors. So I started working at 2 years old. I did a pet milk commercial, and I just went on from there, and I've worked with Bob Hope, I've worked with Alfred Hitchcock, Alan Ladd, did a whole lot of stuff. So I was not an accomplished actor, but I did a whole lot of work before I ever did Leave It To Beaver. Now, Leave It To Beaver was a massive interview. They had about 8,000 or 9,000 boys on the interview, but that wasn't just here in Los Angeles. They interviewed people, and they said they wanted 2 brothers and their friends, and they interviewed New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, and out of about 5,000 kids, I was the one that got the job.
How old were you when you got the job?
I was about 7. By the time we actually went into production, I was 8, because we shot a pilot, and then they had to sell it. And we did 39 a year for the next 6 years, so there's
Wow.
234 episodes.
Wow.
Never been off the air since October of 1957. Shows all over the world in about 57 languages.
Were you homeschooled there or taught on the
Private
set?
tutors. That's under the California law. I had a private tutor,
Yeah.
and Tony Dow, who played my brother Wally on the show, also had a private tutor. And what they do is, my dad, as I say, was in the education system, but they do this anyway. They kind of call all the public school teachers, and I was in elementary school, and they find the very, very best ones. And since they're not only working as a teacher, they're also working as a welfare worker. Anytime a child is on a set, the teacher has to be there. So
Wow.
get paid a little bit more, not a whole lot more, but enough to make it, a better job than being a teacher in Los Angeles at that time. And so I and Tony both had the best education that any child could get. You have a private tutor, which is like the education of the kings and queens of Europe, and she's also looking out for you. I'm a graduate of Berkeley. I hold a degree in philosophy from Berkeley, so it's a very, very good education.
Wow, you've been around, haven't you?
I've been around a little bit.
So, who had influenced you while you were growing up, whether your parents or other people you worked with?
Well, everybody influences you, either some for good and some for bad, but I was very lucky, and they were mostly for good. As I say, my dad was probably the perfect person to raise a child that was in the movie industry or television industry, because he had a full-time job. A lot of the people that were working on other shows, and I won't tell you their names, but
Okay.
a lot of them, nobody else in their family worked but them. And they were the breadwinners for their whole family. Some of them had 3 and 4 brothers and sisters. My family, my dad was fully employed. As I say, he was a teacher and then a principal and vice principal and superintendent. So it didn't matter if I worked or not. I mean, I wasn't the breadwinner in the family. He was. Mine was just kind of gravy on the turkey, so to say. So it was just a really good life. I mean, I had my dad would pick out some of the best teachers from not only for me, but Tony Dow in the LA Unified School District. And those were our teachers. We went to school for 3 hours a day.
Wow.
Tony wanted to be an artist, so he always had a teacher that was had a doctorate in art. I didn't really, since I was younger, have any ambitions like that, so I just had one of the most qualified teachers for whatever grade level I was at in the entire LA Unified School District, which is one of the biggest in the country.
Did you have to learn singing and dancing on top of acting?
Well, I've worked with dancing. I've been on Broadway. I did Hairspray, which required, I played Wilbur on Hairspray on Broadway. When I went in, they were doing about 60% audience. The day I opened, they went to standing room only, and the entire time I was there, they were standing room only. So I have sung and danced professionally, but no, not during Leave It To Beaver.
Oh, I know. I mean, you are well loved throughout the world, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoy my fans, and I just hope they enjoy my work too.
And we can say that we're still watching the show here in Fort Wayne and enjoying it immensely. It's good to see shows that are built on good family values. And
Well, that's the thing about Leave It to Beaver. That's what it is. It's a story about a boy growing up in middle America, and the things that were happening to children in the 50s had been going on since, the 20s and 30s and 40s, and now they're still going on. So, things have changed in some ways, but, family values, and there's always a right choice. When you're growing up, there's always a lot of things that are placed before you. There's always a right choice and a wrong choice. If Beaver made the wrong choice, there were consequences. If he made the right choice, a lot of times it worked out good. There's always a person like Eddie Haskell that always tells you there's an easier road. You don't have to do it the way you're told to do it. There's always the easier road, and usually if you take that easy road, some of the time it's not the best way to go.
Does that would contribute to the success of Leave It to Beaver during the series and afterwards? Is it clean cut?
I think so. I think it's because it's real, from real life. It's just not, you watch a lot of the shows today, they're all either joke shows or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's just set up, joke, and there's no real plot. If you watch Leave It to Beaver, there are very, very few jokes. There are some very funny things that are said, and people laugh, but it's not a joke that's written as a joke. It's about a little boy growing up in America, how his family views him, how he views his family, how he views the world.
Yeah.
And Wally is kind of his older brother. He's like his guardian angel or whatever, and he tells him what's right. Beaver a lot of times knows that there's something wrong, and if he does something wrong, there are always consequences. He never gets away with it. So it's a good standard bearer for growing up in America as a kid. If you watch it, you find out that if you do something wrong, there are always consequences, and you have to pay the price.
Are you still friends with Tony?
Yeah, we're real good friends. I mean, we're older now. We don't live within, we're many, many miles apart. But it's like somebody maybe you went to high school with, or maybe
Yeah.
elementary school. We're good friends. If anything happens in his life, when we were growing up, when he had his son or I had my children, we'd always call up and, tell him, and we talk, not every day, not even maybe once a month, but if anything important happens, and especially to anybody else in the cast, sadly to say, a few of the people have passed away. We always all get together and, talk about them, but now I don't see him even on a maybe monthly basis, weekly or daily or monthly, but as I say, if anything happens in his life, I probably know within a day.
Did you know I also interviewed him as well, eh?
Ah, congratulations. He's a nice man, isn't he? Great athlete. He was actually an AAU swimming and diving champion when he started Leave It to Beaver, and so that's why he was so good at looking like the huge athlete, because that's what he really was. He'd been in one other very, very short-lived TV show that only had one episode before he started Leave It to Beaver, and that episode was a show based on Tarzan, and he played the part of Boy because he was a terrific swimmer and diver.
Really?
So, oh yeah, he was practicing actually from the time he was about 4 years old to be an Olympic athlete.
So, who else are you friends with since you left Leave It to Beaver? I forgot.
They're all my friends. I mean, it's like people that you maybe went to elementary school with.
Yeah.
I spent 6 years of my life
So
with
you
them.
say.
They were all
Oh,
very,
wow.
very good friends with me. But, Ken Osmond, the guy that played Eddie Haskell, sadly to say, some of them have passed. The guy that played Mumpy, and, a few of the other people, Barbara Hugh Beaumont, and a couple of the other people have all passed. But, they were all very, very good friends of mine. And I will, whenever I see them, it's more of it's kind of like maybe people you went to elementary school with.
Yeah.
When something big happens in their lives, if they
Yes.
get married, sadly to say divorced, have kids, something happens with their kids, they graduate or something like that. I usually hear about it, but it's not like I call them every day and talk to them.
So what other positions have you done since Leave It to Beaver? Are you still acting like now? Are you in the theater and all that, but are you acting as of now?
I do. I mean, I don't, doing a series is an awful lot of work. When you're doing a new series, when I was doing even Leave It to Beaver, I also did the new Leave It to Beaver. You'll like this story. I did the new Leave It to Beaver. Have you ever seen it?
I've heard of it. I haven't had a chance to
You've
see
heard of it, but you never saw it. You know why?
Why?
Because I worked 10 years of my life. There's over 230 episodes of it, and it was $1 billion project.
Wow.
Each show was about $1 million to do. They lost it. It was on one time.
Oh,
So I
man.
spent 10 years of my life doing the new Leave It To Beaver. It should have been like the old Leave It To Beaver. Barbara Billingsley was in it, Hugh Bowman attached, but Tony was in it, the guy that played Eddie Haskell.
Yeah.
All the original cast was back, and they lost it. So
Oh.
it showed one time on Turner Television, and it just disappeared. They say into thin air. No one can find them.
Oh my goodness. That's rough after all that.
That's not rough. It's a little disappointing. It'd be like, if you did something that you were very, very proud of and spent 10 years doing it and it was very successful and you thought that it would keep going like the original Leave to Beaver. It would be showing every day and people would be very happy to see it. And people always go, well, I heard about it, but I never got a chance to see it. Where can I go to see it? And I tell them, you probably won't because it's been gone now since about right after the early 90s is when they lost it.
I understand that you were in the band, and I rhymed.
Yeah, that was one of my high school things. When I was in high school, I was in a band. We cut 45s. We cut about 3 45s, and we used to play all the sock hops and different school events here in Los Angeles. It was called Beaver and the Trappers. The guy who played Richard Rick over in Leave It To Beaver, Richard, was the drummer. And it was a high school band, and we cut a couple of records. We cut some 45s. They were on Atlantic. And I had a very good time doing it. That was my summer job when I was, actually, when Leave It To Beaver ended, I'd been working since I was not on Leave It To Beaver, but on other things since I was 2 years old. So I told my parents that I wanted not to go on working because they had another series developed for me. I said I wanted to go to regular school because I wanted to play sports and be around other kids my age. And my parents said, that's fine. And so I went to regular high school, but I did start a band, and that's what I did for a kind of creative outlet. I was in the band. It was called Beaver and the Trappers. We used to record for Atlantic Records. There's, I think, 4 different 45 records that you can pick up from Beaver and the Trappers.
What was your genre?
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll, baby.
Of course.
Rock and roll was the Jerry Mathers. Rock and roll was for the mind, body, and soul.
You bet your booties. I understand you have diabetes, type 2, same like me.
Same like
Yep,
both
I
of
have
us.
diabetes. Actually, after I finished the new Leave It To Beaver, which was in the 80s, I acquired about 3 or 4 different companies, one of which was a catering business, and I was doing studio catering. So I was feeding sometimes 200 and 300 people a day with my catering business, and I put on a lot of weight. I put on about 40 pounds.
Wow.
And I have a very good friend that's my personal physician, and he kept telling me, come on in for a physical, because he knew I couldn't put on that kind of weight and still be healthy. And I said, no, I'm doing fine. I've got my businesses. I'm too busy to come in, but, I'm fine. And so for Christmas, he gave me a free physical, and I went in, and he told me, how'd you like graduate high school and your grandkids and things like that? I said, of course I want to do that. He goes, if you don't do something about your diabetes, you'll be dead in 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
And that was really a wake-up call for me. And I said, well, what can I do? And he said, well, I don't know. It depends how much damage you've actually done to your body. He said, but the first thing you could do, which would be a big help, would be take off the weight. So I lost the weight. And after about almost a year, it took me about 6 months to really start losing the weight. But after a year of going in and being tested, he said, all right, now you're pre-diabetics, and if you keep off the weight, there's a chance that you wouldn't have to go on insulin. So I've been now pre-diabetic for about almost 25, almost 30 years.
We should get together about that because I fluctuate too much,
Yeah, that's the trouble. A lot to do with diabetes. I mean, there's 2 types. There's type 1, and that's when your pancreas actually just stops functioning. But type 2, there are, of course, other causes of it, but one of the major causes for a lot of people with type 2 diabetes is just that they're overweight and their body cannot make enough insulin for the foods they're eating. And when you eat food, you basically produce like little energy pellets. And insulin is just like what the word sounds like. It insulates those pellets and takes them to where they belong so they can give you energy. Well, if you can't make enough of the insulin, those float around as basically a free radical in your blood and attach to things, and they burn them. And that's why, when you see people with diabetes, a lot of times their fingers are all discolored, and then they have to be amputated, or they're low. Because those pellets settle in your feet, a lot of times they'll they'll have to amputate your toes and everything else. So it's a very, very nasty disease, and one that I wouldn't wish on anybody. And someday if the diet and exercise doesn't work, I'll be more than happy to go on insulin. But for right now, that's working for me.
Were you on metformin? Or I'm on that.
I've been on that, yes.
Yeah. How about you, John?
Well, I have a different situation. I've got the type 2 diabetes, but it's secondary to another condition. But nonetheless, it's reducing the amount of carbohydrates you eat, and that's the most important thing, that you don't overload what you eat and that you watch your diet carefully.
That's the whole thing, because your body, as I say, just with the diabetes, it just can't make enough insulin for all that food, and those are basically like an energy pellet. And they get into your bloodstream, and if they're taken to the right place, that's what gives you energy. But if you have way too many of them,
Yeah.
they start to burn, your toes, your fingers, and it's not a good road to go down. And with myself, I caught it early enough. And if you can't control it through diet and exercise and go on insulin, it's a lot better than the consequences. But it's not a good disease to have. But luckily, we have no cures for it, but we have ways that you can deal with it to have a much better quality of life.
Do you have books out on it? Do you?
Do I have? No.
Would you write a book on it?
Probably not. I'm not a doctor. I feel that that's something that usually, every person is different, and every person would have to discuss it with their doctor. So I know how I can control mine, and I've been doing it for almost 20 years. But I wouldn't want to put, the way I do it might not be the proper way for somebody else. So if you go to your doctor and he tells you you have diabetes, you ought to do exactly what he says.
Yes.
I with my doctor have talked it over, and he says as long as it works for me, that's fine. He said, someday it may stop, but when it does, then you go on insulin. I said, that'll be fine.
Do you go out lecturing about this and all?
Well, I do. I say it's kind of like fishing. A lot of times I go out and people want to know about Leave It to Beaver and my working with Bob Hope and Alfred Hitchcock and Alan Ladd and all the different actors and actresses and my time on Leave It to Beaver. And then they say, what are you doing now? And I tell them that I have diabetes, and I explain to them what I do, but I tell them if you're more than 20 pounds overweight,
Yeah.
you better, at least once every couple of years go in and get a physical and have your doctor definitely check your blood sugar, which for a physical they always do. That's where I figure that, I can give back a little bit. As I say, if that doctor hadn't told me when I was overweight to come in for that physical, I thought I was doing great. I thought I was one of the healthiest people around me.
Yeah.
When he told me that I only had a few more years to live unless I did something about it, it came as a shock. Well, I like to use my celebrity to go out and talk to people and save them that shock and maybe save their lives.
I lost about 20 some odd pounds since I found out that I was overdoing it with the sugar in my system.
That's the way to do it. You just got to keep plugging at it, because it's, you have to eat, but it's just a matter of usually, portion control and eating the right foods and getting a little exercise, and, you can all balance it out. But as I say, if they tell you have type 2 diabetes and you can't control your blood sugar, the consequences of not dealing with it are very, very severe. So if you can control it through diet and exercise, it's a wonderful thing. If not, insulin is the best thing in the world for you, because at least it'll stop the terrible consequences of living with diabetes without any medication.
So, John?
Well, let's go back a little bit. You told us earlier that at the end of Leave It to Beaver, you wanted to get back to a more normal life for your age. Did you have any difficulty adjusting to that different life, that different lifestyle?
It was very easy. It was a perfect time for me, because I was in the 8th grade, and in the 9th grade out here in California, I went to high school. So I went to, I knew the high school I wanted to go to. It was school that my dad, as I say, retired as a superintendent of LA City Schools. But when he first started, he was a coach, and it was one of the first schools he coached at. You know, everybody knew that I was on a TV show, and nobody else in my school had done anything like that. But 3 weeks before my freshman year of high school, I went out for the football team. I made the football team. So
wow,
people that were my friends as I went into high school, and we did practice with the JV. I was on the freshman team, but we did practice with the JV and the varsity. So when I went for my very first day at school, people knew who I was. But all the football players were my big buddies because I'd been playing with them for about, I guess it was 8 weeks before school had even started. So those were the people. I made the team. So I was part of that clique. So I was a football player. I did track. I did have a band, and I formed a band called Beaver and the Trappers, and we used to play all the proms and sock hops for the school. So I was a celebrity, not so much and I was never a celebrity, to be honest with you. I was always a very skinny little kid, so I was never a celebrity in the football team, but I did play. And I had a band, and we'd play all the sock hops. So people, when I was going to high school, all the people in my high school and all the surrounding high schools, I was the person that had a band called Beaver and the Trappers, and I was the guitar player and lead singer for it. So I was much more known for Beaver and the Trappers in high school than I was for being Leave It to Beaver.
Oh, question. This is the last question, my friend, before we have to sign off.
Okay.
What can you say to my audience to encourage them with their future and how they can succeed in what they want to do?
Well, what you have to do is you have to look around, see what you're good at, find a goal, try to attain it. You know, if you can't attain it, find another goal and keep working at it, because there are a lot of bumps along the way on the road of life. You try to go with good people. You know, if you're hanging around with the wrong people, they're only going to get you in trouble. So do what you think is right, and if you do what you think is right and you use common sense, you'll have a very, very good life. That's what I've done my whole life. I have some of my best friends are people that I've known all my life. And, you know, just watch who your friends are. If you have friends, and it's kind of a colloquialism, but if you have friends like Eddie Haskell, you don't need any enemies.
Oh my goodness. Jerry, thank you.
My pleasure. It was a pleasure talking with you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, dear.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was Jerry Mathers we had on our show. What'd you think?
You know, I was impressed, and I like the message that he gave. It's the message of the show that he was on.
Yeah.
But his whole background seems to reinforce that. His personal life, you know, his father being in education, it all works together.
Yeah.
And to produce a gentleman that is just a wonderful person. And that's what's important here.
That's what he left me the impression of. A very well-behaved, wonderful person who is wholesome, who has, you know, not bad news at all. He's a good influence on people, and I'm glad that I had him on my show. So this is John Dickmeyer, and this is Patty Hunter at Patty's Page. We'll see you next week, and God bless.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my